Like your friendly old neighbor Johnny. Rather than coming over to borrow a cup of sugar, he may now be coming over for murder.
Shields up, Ironbreakers. Work on here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Fallout 76. And I realize I'm a little bit late to the party with this one because most people already did their gameplay breakdowns as well as their speculation videos shortly after the Bethesda E3 press conference, which, by the way, was this year's best E3 press conference in my personal opinion, even if just for the fact that they were able to actually sell me on a Fallout game, which is a franchise that I've never really been that interested in, but I really liked what I saw at that presentation, and that's the reason why we're working on this video. Now, the reason why it took me so long to get around and actually working on it is because before talking about mechanics for Fallout 76, I figured I should immerse myself into the franchise a little bit so that I get an idea of how the franchise actually worked before 76 so that I can have those mechanics in context. So I've been playing Fallout for a decent amount over on Twitch. This is an ongoing thing because I still haven't finished the game, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, which was actually really surprising. I was not expecting to be having this much fun playing Fallout 4. As a matter of fact, we even did that highlight video a while back that you guys seem to have enjoyed. But yeah, Fallout 4 was very much a nice surprise, and it was a very nice way for me to integrate myself into the franchise and understand what Fallout is about. And having said that, I then started collecting a bunch of information from the NOCLIP documentary, as well as a bunch of interviews that I found on YouTube, and the gameplay that we've seen so far, as well as the Bethesda E3 presentation. And I've compiled all of those into one massive document that I will now be handing over to you guys. But it's not going to be just information. I'll also be giving you guys a little bit of my own speculation on how these mechanics are going to work, and my personal take on how I feel about them and why I think that this is going to be a really fun game. So, having said that, let's get started. And the first thing that I want to talk about is talk a little bit about the tech and studio that are working on the framework of Fallout 76. So for those of you that were not aware, during the development of Fallout 4, they actually were planning to do a Fallout multiplayer component. I mean, it was in talks. They were like, no, this is a thing that we could do. But then eventually they dropped it off and they just focused on the single player experience, which is something that a lot of you guys enjoy and I can understand, but I like multiplayer. I like co-op. I don't think it needs to be in every game, but at the same time, I also think that you need to give studios a chance to get out of their comfort zone, and you need to, allow them to actually do that. Because I know that a lot of people are thinking, oh, this is just the thing so that they can get it on that multiplayer pie. They're trying to do some fucking battle royale Fallout. I don't think that's the case, okay? I just think generally the studio's like, let's try to do some multiplayer shenanigans with Fallout and see how that works. And that is something that I'm personally excited to just see how it works. Anyways, they were talking about doing multiplayer for Fallout 4. That ended up never really panning out because they focused on the single player experience, but the studio kept talking about it, right? And so eventually they decided that they would actually be doing that into its own thing. So they got one of their internal studios at Bethesda to actually work on this. And when I heard this studio's name, I was actually a little bit concerned. This is Battlecry Studios. And for those of you that are not familiar, Battlecry Studios was a studio that was formed inside Bethesda for the specific purpose of working on a game called Battlecry. That game was going to be a third-person shooter that was going to be inspired a little, at least it seemed inspired, by Team Fortress 2. I think at some point the Squadron even, you guys remember TGN Squadron? I think we even got to play an alpha of that at some point, but honestly, I don't remember. It's been a long, long time. But essentially, I was very concerned when I heard about this studio being the one because their game got canceled and they suffered a massive wave of layoffs. And I was concerned about that. But another thing that they mentioned on the NOCLIP documentary is that there's a lot of people in this studio that worked on Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. Now, I never played Star Wars Galaxies, but I did play my fair share of Ultima Online. And it was one of the best MMOs that I ever played back in the day. That game was awesome. And I know that nowadays probably you look at footage for Ultima Online, you're like, what the fuck? You goddamn old man? That's basically what you guys are going to say to me. But trust me, that game was a whole lot of fun. So I think that if there's still people in this studio that have worked in Ultima Online, This is a very good thing. So we'll see whether or not that is going to be something that pans out. Anyway, this is the studio that will be retrofitting multiplayer into the Fallout 4 engine. And this is another one of my concerns, because let's face it, the Fallout 4 engine, from what I've seen so far, I've been playing it on the PlayStation 4, that is not the most optimized thing I've ever seen. And as someone that actually played a bit of Skyrim back when it came out on PC, Bethesda, your creation engine, it sure has a lot of potential, but that infinite potential also has a lot of potential to break. As Todd Howard said it himself on the Bethesda presentation, their games have a ton of bugs. So retrofitting multiplayer into the Fallout engine, and the way that they talked about how your character is Atlas, so stuff renders around your character, like, I'm just like, Jesus Christ, there's so much potential for this thing to explode. And then they're talking about implementing Quake netcode into Fallout 4, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ. We're talking about an engine that has been around since the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, okay? This is crazy. I really do hope they're able to pull it off. And to top it off, Todd Howard even said during the presentation that the engine now has a better lighting thing, better lighting technology. It has better rendering technology. You're able to actually render weather at long distances. And I'm just, again, I'm thinking to myself, dude, just make sure that it is properly optimized. Make sure that this game actually runs well and doesn't require like a supercomputer to run, okay? Because I want to be able to play this on console. And call me console peasant, call me whatever you want. It's just because I have a lot of friends that have console and I want to be able to play this game with them, naturally. That's the whole point of Fallout 76, in my opinion. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the settings. So this is going to take place in West Virginia, and they've said that there's actually a lot of stuff that they've been drawing from there, like conspiracy theories that actually play into the Fallout lore and stuff, and that's actually something that I'm very interested in. However, there's not going to be human NPCs, which is, it's kind of weird, because like Fallout has a lot of dialogue interactions with other humans, and I guess that is one of the main reasons why people are so upset about it. There's a lot of, meaningful interaction, at least in Fallout 4, with other characters. And not having those humans there to tell you about these conspiracy theories, and apparently the only humans that you're going to be running into are going to be other players, it's a bit of a weird thing. But anyway, this setting is in West Virginia. There's a rich lore that they're going to be taking from actual real life and putting that stuff into the game, such like some of the West Virginia myths, like the Mothman and I don't know them all by head. You're going to be seeing them in the trailer that I'll be showing throughout this video anyway. But some of those myths are going to be the fuel for some of the boss design that they're going to be doing for Fallout 76, which sounds very interesting, particularly I think for people that actually live in West Virginia, to see that their fears come to life in a Fallout game. Or maybe that will just become nightmare fuel for some children. Who knows? Like that's actually terrible now that I think about it. Anyway, from a timeline setting, this is the earliest Fallout game in the franchise, and this is actually the closest that you've ever had a Fallout to the detonation of the bombs from a timeline perspective, which they're saying that basically this means that there's more radiation throughout the world, which allows for wilder mutations. So you're going to see some heavily mutated monster-looking creatures that didn't really exist later in the Fallout franchise because apparently they died out because those mutations were very unstable, and so those creatures died out. So I think this is going to allow them to do some really crazy looking stuff, and that is one of the things that I really like. An interesting tidbit here as well is that Vault 76 is one of the control vaults where inhabitants were not subject to experimentation. Before playing Fallout, I actually thought that, these vaults were actually the real thing and people actually lived inside of these vaults. And in the case of Fallout 4, you basically get frozen in the vault. And apparently they were doing all kinds of weird experiments in people in other vaults. So this is one of the control vaults where there has been no experimentation done on people. So therefore, that's why you're the only humans that are getting out at this point. Anyway, without having any human NPCs out in the world, how are you going to have stuff like raiders that you had in previous Fallout games? Apparently, there's going to be a couple of ghouls that are, while they are feral, they're not that far gone, as the developers themselves have stated, which basically means they can still use stuff like guns, and those are going to be kind of like not the faction, so to speak. It's going to be like a race that will work as raiders. You will still have stuff like super mutants. We've seen those in gameplay footage and whatnot, as well as a bunch of other enemies that will be returning, as well as some of the new, wilder, crazier looking enemies inspired by the folklore of West Virginia. Another cool thing is that they said that you're supposed to get lost in the environment. They were talking about how there's going to be this mountain range separating the map, essentially. And depending on which side you are, you're going to be seeing different things. And when you go deep into the valley, you're basically going to get lost into the world. I mean, I already kind of get lost in Fallout 4, and the world is 4 times smaller. So I can only imagine how lost I'm going to be getting on Fallout 76. It's going to be friggin' crazy. Now, one of the main concerns about this is people like, can I play solo? Can I play by myself? And there's a little bit misinformation going on because some people are saying, yes, you're going to have private servers and you're going to be able to play just by yourself. That's actually not the case. You're going to be able to play solo, but there's still going to be other people in the server. This is how it's going to work at launch, according to the latest information that I've seen anyway. At launch, you're not going to see like server selection or anything. You're going to log into the game, and you can choose to go onto a server that you have a friend, for instance, and you and your friend can get together and play, or the game will just assign a random server to you, and there will be other players in that server. We're going to be talking about player numbers further down in the video, if you guys are curious about that, but basically, no, you cannot play completely alone in the world. Like, you might get lucky and log in at a time where maybe they just filled up a server, so maybe no one's going to be joining your server for a while, but there's at launch, at least, there's not going to be a way for you to control whether or not you're going to be alone in the game world. Now, you can still play by yourself in that multiplayer setting, but the game is going to be designed around co-op with 4 players. I'm going to be trying to play both ways, and I'll be reporting at a later date once the game actually comes out, or if I'm able to get beta access. I will tell you guys how it feels to play solo versus playing with other players, if you guys are on the fence by then. You'll be able to have multiple characters, so it's not like you just have your one character and that's it. You'll be able to create multiple characters so that you can even role play a character that is evil and he's an asshole to other players, and then you can have your goody two-shoes character if that is something that you want to do. Like I said, there will be no private maps when you start at the launch of the game. The game is always online. There is no offline mode. There will be story and quests. They will be handed out by like robots, as well as holotapes, data terminals, that kind of stuff. You'll be exploring the world, and you will be finding that kind of stuff. I think kind of organically, the way that you already find some of these quests like that in Fallout 4. Not every quest is initiated by talking to an NPC. Some quests you might even get like a radio frequency where you will, you just find that radio frequency out into the world and you follow the radio frequency and find like a special event or something like that. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I don't think that the story is going to be the main focus of the game. There will be a story that will get you through the completion. I think the story in this one's gonna work a little bit like a tutorial to introduce you to gameplay mechanics and maybe even introduce you to dynamic events, which I'm pretty sure they're gonna be doing dynamic events for a game like this. In a way, you can almost imagine Fallout as a Destiny, but in the Fallout universe, so to speak, which is probably an oversimplification. But at least it looks like the business practices that they are planning, which we'll get to at the end of this, are not going to be as bad as what has been happening throughout Destiny. In regards to mods, a lot of people are wondering whether or not mods will be supported. They will not be supported at launch. However, they have a plan that post-launch, they will enable people to be able to do private servers. And in those private servers, you will be able to put mods. Now, I'm going to assume that these mods are going to first be available on PC, and then eventually they're going to figure out a solution for consoles, if at all. This time around, I actually suspect that mods might only be available on PC. Now, me personally, I don't really care about mods all that much because I like playing the original vision of games. I understand that this is a big thing for Bethesda, people that play Bethesda's games, but at the start, you're not going to be able to have that because, I mean, you just can't do that in a multiplayer game. That would give players an unfair advantage. It would break the game. It would do all these crazy things. But later down the line, that is definitely planned, and I suspect that that is going to be definitely a PC thing. I would imagine within the first 6 months or so, that might be a thing, but it is probably going to take them a while because they're still going to have to get into their pipeline to figure out the pace at which they're going to be releasing DLC, which I believe is going to be free for the most part. Anyway, now let's talk about the multiplayer aspects of 76. So Bethesda wants players to collide. They want there to be a little bit of drama. You know, they want you to actually have, you know, they want to have feuds in the game. Now, there's a lot of potential here for role-playing. Unfortunately, they're not going to enable you to select servers, so it's not like you can just select, oh, I want to go to a role-playing server where I can role-play, and you can role-play as a raider, you can role-play as a trader. You know, there just seems to be so much role-playing potential that I almost wish there was like a selection. Like, hey, if you go in here, this will be with other like-minded individuals that want to role-play and want to do that kind of play style. And again, that seems so interesting, but unfortunately, at least at launch, I don't see that being an option. But anyway, they want there to be drama, as in someone can actually go up to you and kill you. Now, they've also been stating, oh, but don't worry because, you know, you're going to be able to opt out of PvP. Those are not the exact words, but these are the interpretations that a lot of people are taking to that. There's an interesting tidbit here, which is you will see other players in the map. And I know some of you guys might think that doesn't make sense, but it does. Because if you consider that every player is coming out of Vault 76, right? Even though from a role-playing perspective, you could consider that someone's coming up from a different vault. But every player is coming out of Vault 76. Every player has a Pip-Boy. You know, it stands to reason that the Pip-Boys would be able to detect themselves, and you would be able to pinpoint another player's location on the map because the Pip-Boy is sending out a signal. Now, I think it would be more interesting rather than you just seeing everyone in the map off the bat. It would be more interesting that you would be able to catch different Pip-Boy frequencies throughout the world. Like, as you are navigating the world and you get within a certain range, like, wouldn't it be cooler instead of you just, oh, I'll open up the map. Okay, I know there's 4 players here, 5 players there, whatever. Instead of that, you open up the map and there's nobody there. And then as you are moving through the world, if you get close enough to another player, you will detect their Pip-Boy frequency. And then the two of you, you know, you can like maybe send out messages through the Pip-Boy. I think that would be cool because then you could have situations where people would actually set up traps and stuff like, because when players crouch, if they are in sneak mode and stealth, you actually can't detect them in the map. So you could set up a situation where you would have one player walking around the world with 3 players stealthing behind him, and you could set up ambushes and stuff. But again, the way that the PvP system is going to work, from my personal interpretation, is you meet another player into the world, you both can fire at each other, kill each other, whatever. Anything goes. It's free for all. I think that's how it's going to work on your very first encounter. Once one of you wins, the loser then has the choice, okay, do I want to get revenge on this guy, or do I want to ignore him and move on with my life? At which point you'll probably say, okay, I want revenge. And they're saying they're going to put incentives on there. So most likely if someone kills you, you'll get like an incentive like, okay, if you kill this guy, you're going to get this amount of caps, or maybe they'll give you a rare material or an emote, or I don't know. But basically there will be incentives in place there. So you can say, okay, no, I will fight this guy because I want to win this thing. And then you choose yes, and you go after him and you fight him, and you might die again, or you might win and you get your reward. And at that point, the other guy is then going to get his own message, and he's going to be like, okay, so do you want to fight this guy, or do you want to get revenge, and here's your incentive, or do you want to let bygones be bygones? And what I think is going to happen is that at any point when you say no, that's it. The other player can't shoot you anymore. I think that's it. I think that's how it's going to work. And the bad part of it is that I feel like the other player should be allowed to defend a certain section of the map. So say, for instance, although that could lead to a lot of griefing because someone could camp like a crucial questing area or something. So I don't know, it's weird. But it feels weird because you look at it like this. Players in this game are supposed to work as raiders in Fallout 4, right? So if there's a group of raiders and they're defending a position and you want to get to that position, you have to kill the raiders. You can choose not to. That's a choice that you get in game, because that's kind of like the example that they've been given throughout interviews. Like, you find a death claw, you don't have to fight the death claw. You can move on with your life. Go back to death claw when you want. it's the same thing if you find a group of raiders in the game. You don't have to engage the raiders, but if you want to go to where the raiders are, you have to. So I think there should be like an intermediate mechanic there where players should be able to defend a certain position. Like, okay, I don't want to engage in this player, then you have to go do something someplace else, because that player is in that area. If you cross like a certain line that player is in, you're flagged for PvP again. I think there needs to be a bit of a balance there. It can't just be like, oh, I don't feel like fighting him, and then you can just walk up to him and he can't shoot you, because that's going to lead to a griefing of a different matter. Someone's going to get killed, they're going to get salty, and then they're going to go harass the player that killed them because he can't kill them anymore, and they're going to just be like, oh, you suck, and probably say stuff about their mother, because that's usually what tends to happen, which, you know, but again, there's going to be a lot of balancing. They've already said they have a lot of levers that they plan on tuning depending on how things work out. So we will see how the end game will be, but I think it is going to be a bit of an interesting social experience in a way. The same way that you had that with DayZ when DayZ came out, which is, again, a game that I didn't really care that much about. But the important thing here is, I know that some of you guys are concerned, you're like, so you mean that every time that I meet a player for the first time, I can get killed? That sounds like a serious problem, but you're not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose any progress. You're not going to lose any loot. You're not going to lose anything at all. The only thing you lose is maybe a couple of minutes of walking from where you were to where you respawn. So I don't think that's a big deal. You can just instantly say, okay, he killed me. I don't want to engage in this anymore. Move on with your life, you know? So I don't think the PvP is going to be a major problem. They've specifically said that you're not going to be able to grief other players. And, you know, I'm hoping also that a lot of you guys, my iron breakers, like, set a good example, you know? If someone's being a little bitch, report them. Get them out of the game. There's probably going to be a report system in place. There has to be. Let me see. What other things do I have in here? They were saying that there might be eventually a wanted system for hostile players, which I'm assuming is going to be something that maybe will reward other players for killing them, which seems like an interesting thing. Whether or not that is going to be the case, that's still something that they are deciding. Maybe there will be a death penalty for people that involve themselves in too much PKing, because that is a risk. But right now, there isn't a death penalty for anything at all. In Todd Howard's words, it will be messy for a little bit, but we can solve it. And I think it is important to mention something, because this is something that Todd Howard said in the NOCLIP interview. He's like, oh, I'm worried if it's going to be like this. I'm worried if it's going to be like this. And if this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And then I was just like, I'm worried if it's going to be boring. And I think that, like, was something that really gave me a lot of confidence for what they're trying to do here. It can be a complete shit show. I think for the starter, it's probably going to be a big shit show, but hopefully they'll get it right, because the potential for what can be done seems like a lot of fun. But anyway, you guys might be wondering as well, how many players are going to be on a per server basis, because this is not going to be one central server. They're not going to put thousands upon thousands of players. They're not even going to put hundreds of players. One of the numbers that was mentioned, and I don't think that this person was supposed to bring this number up. He just kind of let it slide. He said, oh, you log into a server, it's 24-person instance. I think 24 is the number that they're studying right now. So it'll probably vary around the 20s, 30s for the amount of players, which for a map that big, it is not that many players at all. So you're not going to be finding players left, right, and center. So these PvP events where you're going to get killed all of a sudden, they will happen. But I don't think they're going to happen frequently enough where it's going to be game-breaking. And also, with 24 people roaming the world and multiple nuclear silos, I don't think it's going to be that easy for people to just get all of the codes, which is another thing that I think a lot of people are scared about, is that there's going to be nukes falling all the time. I think a nuke falling is going to be like a major thing. I don't think it's going to be something that you're going to be seeing happening every 5 minutes. Like, I will be surprised if a nuke falls on the first day of release, especially because probably the servers are going to be fucking broken and the nukes are not going to work. That's my prediction. But the other thing is the party size, in case you guys are curious about that, right now it is for 4 players, 4-player parties, which personally, I actually prefer 4-player parties over like big sprawling MMOs or, you know, 4 is a very nice number because usually you can make do with 3 or you can struggle with 2. And then if you have 4, you'll be fine. which, you know, it gives you balance for a wide variety of experiences. Now, naturally, if you're going to be soloing, it's probably going to be even more challenging, but I still think it will be doable for a lot of activities, just probably not the more high-end game stuff. Which we'll see whether or not they plan on doing some kind of looking for group. That could be a thing, maybe, but that hasn't been mentioned at all. Another thing that they've said is that they are studying the possibility of allowing players to set up robot vendors, which were kind of like the old MMOs. I remember when I used to play Lineage, you could like set your character up in a town and just have them there like selling stuff. That is really an old school MMO thing. But we'll see how that works out. But that is going to be for the players that want to mostly be traders, which is going to be something that I think that will definitely enable traders, crafters, that kind of stuff. And again, it's interesting if you're able to role play that kind of a character in a Fallout universe, where it's just like, I just want to be a character that talks his way through stuff most of the time. Although when you encounter other humans, that might be tough. But it can actually be done, because essentially, if everybody's playing on PC, or even if you have a group of people that might have like a PlayStation keyboard or even emote in a certain way, and you are actually able to communicate with other people, it might even become more interesting than encounters with raiders. You can't just assume that everyone's going to be that asshole that's just going to be running around shooting everybody dead. There are also people that are interested in the role-playing aspects of it, which again, I really, really wish they would just give you the options like, click this button if you want to join a roleplay server. You will be banned if you do not play roleplay. You know, that kind of stuff would be cool. So, just a quick brief mention on the special stats. So that's strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. The stats that you have in Fallout games. Apparently, each time that you level up, you are going to get a new perk card. And you will be able to swap out perk cards at will. Now, I'm confused about a couple of things, because they don't really go and specify like the stats themselves. So does that mean we still have stats, or do we just have perk cards that we can then change? And depending on the cards that you choose, you then get a stat associated with that card. How is that going to work out? You know, because here's the thing. You can swap out your perk cards at will. That means that you will be able to swap out builds depending on what you are doing, which to me is extremely important, because that enables me to do builds, which is something that I love doing. You know, I love doing builds like the stuff that we've done for Monster Hunter World, and I would very much like to be able to do that in Fallout. Now, in Fallout 4, you can't do that, but in Fallout 4, you can also get every skill, every perk, every stat if you play long enough. Now, this being a multiplayer game, naturally you can't do that. You're going to have to do specific builds that will be specialized to doing something. And if you can swap your perk cards, I'm also going to assume that your stats are not going to be set in stone, which to me, really, really cool. As a matter of fact, there's even a couple of perk cards which will affect your whole party. Specifically, I think that charisma is going to be something that you will be able to get like leadership skills and stuff like that. And you will then be able to, you know, give buffs to your teammates and those kinds of things, which is pretty cool. Now, the gameplay loop is going to be very different from what you expect from a Fallout game, because pretty much right now you go into a Fallout game and usually your gameplay loop can be, oh, I'm going to go follow the main story now, or I'm going to go investigate this thing over here, and there might be like a special quest, or maybe I have this thing to... Whereas in this game, there's still going to be a focus on exploration, naturally, just exploring the wasteland, finding out interesting points that you're just like, oh, that looks interesting, I'm going to go over there and figure out what's down there. So that could be something that you can do. You can focus on crafting, which, to be honest, is something I didn't do all that much in Fallout 4, but I think on this one, it's going to be a lot more important. You'll probably be able to do some sweet weapons and armor that you might even be able to sell to other players. So you can go out and find materials for crafting. That can be something that you choose to do for a session. You can go fight monsters specifically for loot drops. You can go and you can build your camp. You can go and basically they're going to implement a similar build system to Fallout 4. And I say similar because I don't want it to be the same, because the building system in Fallout 4, I don't know if you guys on PC are using a bunch of mods to make that thing usable, but on PS4 that thing is a fucking nightmare. Sorry. I really hope they do a better version of that for 76 because that thing is a nightmare to build anything. I couldn't even build a fucking square, okay? I could not build a square. I just want to build a squared wall. Couldn't do that the first time that I played Fallout. Took a long time before I figured out how to do that. But another thing that you can do is you can claim public workshops. Now, public workshops is going to be something that is going to give you valuable events for crafting. There might even valuable resources for crafting. There might even be special events happening when you go down to those public workshops. You will have to fight the monsters that are inside the workshop. You will then have to fortify them, which means there will probably be more monsters that will show up afterwards, almost like a horde type event, something like that. And you will most likely have to team up to do some of those things, or so I would expect. So, you know, hopefully you guys will be able to make some friends. Like, don't be so antisocial, you know, like, give it a chance. Give this a chance is all I'm saying. I'm not saying go out, pre-order it, buy it, all that stuff, but watch the gameplay, keep an open mind because there is potential here, okay? At least in my opinion, there's a lot of potential. But yeah, the public workshops thing sounds interesting to me at least because it's going to be something that, again, you're going to have to probably team up. It might be a part of the dynamic special events that you can do. And the fortification side of it, it's interesting because it's going to be a public workshop, so it's not going to be your actual camp. So are you going to be building defenses on these workshops? I don't know. But again, there is that kind of gameplay loop that you can go out and do. And naturally, there is still the end game where you can go and you can try to find out the nuclear launch code so that you can launch your own nukes. Moving onwards, so let's talk about camps, since we talked about building a little bit just now. You're going to be able to build your own camp. You're going to be able to build it on a location that you like. You're not going to be able to build it anywhere in the world because they want to prevent people from like blocking off quest areas or blocking off rare monsters, something like that. Basically, they just want to prevent people from griefing. But other than that, you will be able to build like your own little camp. And the interesting thing here is that your camp is going to be blueprinted, which means whenever you swap servers, the camp goes with you. And if there is space in that spot, in that server, it will just show up exactly where your camp was previously. If there is not enough space, then it will be blueprinted and you will have it with you and you can place it somewhere else. Now, you guys are like, well, but I mean, if there's going to be a bunch of people on these servers, how are these camps going to, you know, is it not just going to be like camps everywhere? No, because you're going to have like 24 people per server. So, I mean, average. There might be more, there might be less, depending on how much they decide for the final game. The number right now, in my opinion, is 24. So, depending on how many people are there, there's not going to be that many camps out into the world because you can only have one camp per person. And then the public workshop thingamajigs. So the fact that your camp can be blueprinted is something that I'm curious about because I think that basically means that wherever you place down your camp is going to have to be a bit of a flat area. And then another thing that they mentioned is that your camp is going to be easy to repair should someone attack it because the materials are readily available for you to craft stuff like defenses and whatnot. So that brings me to a very specific question. Okay, so people can attack your camps. That's fine. Is there an incentive for them to attack your camps? Like, what do I get if I decide to raid someone else's camp? Because naturally, they already said that you're not going to be losing out on loot when you die. So I'm going to assume that you're also not going to be losing out on loot if someone attacks your camp. So I can't steal someone else's loot, but does that mean that I can still, like, get materials from burning someone's camp down? Like, say, for instance, they built this super powerful turret or whatever, right? And I go in there and I take that turret out. They don't lose materials. They will have to spend materials to repair that turret, but will I be able to get, like, rare parts off of that turret or rare parts off of whatever they had out there defending their camp? That could be an interesting incentive for people to actually attack camps. The other thing is, does the player need to be online in order for someone to attack their camps? Maybe the camps will stay in the server until a new player joins in and takes over that space. Who knows? There's a lot of questions that are up in the air right now. But the main one, I think, is going to be what is the incentive for attacking other player camps? Because it can't just be griefing, you know? Because there has to be player incentive. Otherwise, why would you do it? Anyway, moving right along, let's talk about the survival aspect of it, because a lot of people, naturally, you hear Fallout multiplayer building, they start thinking Rust, Ark, and I gotta be honest, not into those games at all. I played Ark back when I was with TGN Squadron. Never really enjoyed it all that much. I thought that game was glitchy as balls. I hated the fact that you constantly needed to drink, you needed to be hot, you needed to be... It's like, oh, now your character's too hot. Oh, now your character's too cold. Oh, your character just pooped. Oh, now you need to drink water. Oh, now you need to eat. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. What is this, a fucking chore simulator? Jesus. God. So that was something that frustrated me a lot. And they've already said that they want to balance it so that there is a survival aspect there, but they want to make sure that it is not a chore. It is going to be something that is going to be fun, okay? They want to make sure that there is survival elements, but you're not going to be basically ripping your hair out like I was whenever I was playing Ark. It was just like, your character's cold, your character's hot, your character needs to poop. You know, like, oh my God, please stop, make it stop. Another interesting thing is that when you get radiated, now in previous games you would lose your maximum health, at least in Fallout 4, that's how it works. Also, I'm sorry, I'm scratching my nose a lot, allergies. But in previous games, when you got radiation exposure, your character would lose its max health. It would be replaced by the radiation, and then you would have to use something like a Radaway to make that stuff go away. In 76, whenever you get radiation, there will be a chance that your character actually starts suffering from a mutation. Now, these are going to have positive and negative aspects, and that is very interesting because maybe you get a mutation that like gives you a super strong right arm or something, and you'll be able to deal more melee damage. But the counterpart to that could be that now you're no longer able to aim weapons as efficiently. And maybe you'll actually want that. You know, maybe you're like, oh, but I want to do a melee build, so I want that mutation. There will be ways. They're talking about mostly endgame type stuff, but there will be ways to get mutations permanently, so you can be mutated, you can be a mutant. Now, they also said that most of these mutations are going to only be like gameplay related, so they're not really going to show on your character, but some of them will be cosmetic in nature, so they will change the aspect of your character. Like maybe your character will actually begin glowing green. And maybe he'll be better at healing because he's glowing green. Who knows? But that is very interesting because, again, that is going to enable you to do even more variations on the different builds that you will have by swapping out certain perks and then combining those with mutations. And you guys know I'm all about messing with that kind of stuff. Anyway, let's talk about the endgame. The endgame is the nuclear war. So you're going to have to find the codes by facing off against high-level monsters. At some points, you will even have the, what is it called, a Scorch Beast, that bat-looking creature that will show up and you will probably have to fight it. And I think there was speculation that you might even have to use the nukes in order to kill it. So that is pretty friggin' interesting. But the cool thing is that you're gonna have to find these codes. You're gonna have to solve some puzzles. And once you get the codes, you then have to decide where are you going to fire off the nuke. Now you can actually, I don't know if you're just going to be able to select any section of the map or if there's going to be like a preset of selections that will be like, you can nuke here, you can nuke there, you can nuke over there. I hope they let you nuke anywhere you want because that'll be interesting. Naturally, you're not going to be able to nuke players if they are in the game. Like if they're AFK, I think you'll be able to nuke players, but if they're actively playing, you're not going to be able to nuke them. Not to mention, who the hell is going to waste all of the effort of actually finding the codes for the nuke to go ahead and just nuke a helpless player? Maybe there's even a trophy for getting nuked. Who the hell knows? But anyway, once you nuke an area, that whole area is going to change. There's going to be a bunch of radiation in that area. There's going to be special mobs in that area that are going to have special drops. They're going to have rare item drops, rare gear drops, rare crafting material drops. Which, by the way, speaking of rare, they're adding more tiers to the legendary system of Fallout 4. For those of you that are not familiar, in Fallout 4 you have weapons, and then you can modify the weapons with different things. And then you have legendary versions of those weapons, which essentially will add like a special effect to a weapon. Like you can have incendiary weapons, which means they will set enemies on fire. You can have weapons that deal additional limb damage, which allows you to chop off enemies' legs while you are firing. So there's a lot of those little modifiers, and those are legendary weapons in Fallout 4. In Fallout 76, there's going to be more tiers, so you can expect something in the lines of what we've seen previously in stuff like Diablo. So you're going to have, like, I don't know, uncommon, rare, legendary, and it's probably going to be different colors. I'm not sure if it's going to be different colors, but there's going to be more than just one tier to the legendary system. So those rare drops, which you will find on the endgame zones, the endgame zones are basically going to be in the game after a nuclear launch, after a nuke has been launched. And for all those people that are like scared, like, so what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to go through these areas or not? Like, I think a lot of players are going to basically flock to the area where the nuke happened because you're going to want to get those rare items. You're going to want to get those rare gears. So if anything else, if you're not able to join on a group, you can go to the area and maybe you'll be able to leech off of the main group. I don't know. But at the same time, there's not always going to be 4 people on those locations. There's going to be like groups of 2 and 3. So, you know, use this thing that we have, communicate with other people and tell them, hey, can I join your group? I'll help you guys. And it's probably going to be better than walking that zone with only 3 people, with only 2 people, you know, with an incomplete group. So I think that's going to be fun. And another really cool tidbit here is that depending on the location of the map that you nuke, different things are going to appear. So it's not like, okay, so I'm going to nuke here and these mosses are going to spawn here. No, depending on the location that you nuke, different mosses will spawn, which I'm also assuming that you will get different crafting materials from, which you will most likely also get different weapons from. And that actually seems like a lengthy endgame because you're going to have to find the nuclear launch codes. Once you find the nuclear launch codes, you launch the nuke. Where did you launch it? Over here. Okay, so here maybe these are the weapons that deal fire damage. Okay, but now I want the weapons that, you know, make enemies go frenzy or something like that. So next nuke we launch has to go over there. And it's actually going to force people to, you know, get together and figure things out and decide where you're going to be nuking. It's not just like, oh, I have the keys, so therefore we're nuking here. I don't know. There's a lot of systems in play that seem like they will make for very interesting interactions. So now let's talk about VATS a little bit. So for those of you that are not familiar with VATS, I actually don't even know what the meaning of VATS is. I think it's vault-assisted something. Vault-assisted tech, whatever. But basically, this is the thing that you do in Fallout 4 where you press a button, slows down time, and you can aim at a different body part from a monster. Now, naturally, you're not going to be doing that in a multiplayer environment because, you know, everybody's moving in real time. However, they have stated that VATS is in the game, and you can do it in real time, and you will even be able to, you know, aim to different body parts. The purpose of VATS, according to them, is to help out players that don't have Twitch shooter skills, which it definitely does that in Fallout 4. Like, if you're not good at shooting games, you can spec out your character in a way that really takes advantage of VATS, and you can just, like, play it that way, which is a lot of fun, by the way. But on this one, it's not going to be quite the same, but again, this is mostly speculation, but you can almost see it in one of the gameplay scenes that they show you, where there's a character, the first PvP interaction that you see in gameplay from the E3 footage, you see that your character is aiming at someone's left arm, and then he shoots this big friggin' cannon that he has, but the left arm comes off. The right arm of the other person comes off. So you're aiming at the left arm, you fire, the right arm comes off. Does that mean that they were aiming in VATS previously, and that's what happened? Or does that mean that, you know, it was just like that gun fires so wide that the shot just ended up going to the wrong arm? We don't know, but essentially VATS is there and will be helping out players that have difficulty with Twitch shooting skills. You will be able to spec out stuff, and I also think that depending on how proficient you are with the controller, this is something that a lot of console players are going to be using. Anyway, that's real-time VATS. There's not a whole lot more to say about that. In regards to DLC, they're saying that they're planning large updates as well as small updates, so they want to have like a steady cadence of little content updates that they do in between the big chunks. What the pacing of that is going to be, we'll have to see. I think that at this point, most of that DLC is going to be free, and then they're going to be monetizing it through microtransactions. And I know you guys are like, oh, the dirty word! The microtransactions, but throughout all of the interviews that I've seen, what they've said is you can only buy cosmetic microtransactions, and every cosmetic item that you can buy will be obtainable through regular play. This is what they've said. These are the only things that have been released so far. So whether or not we can trust them, we shall see. Again, I don't have that much experience with Bethesda. I don't follow that games that closely. This is going to be the first time that I'm actually going to be trying to follow the news flow of what this game is going to be because I'm extremely interested in it. So we will see how this whole thing pans out. But right now, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about all of the things that I said in this video? If you made it all the way down here, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm very curious to hearing you guys' opinions on this. Before I started working on this video, I did a little poll to gather people's opinions on Fallout 76. And I did this poll on both YouTube as well as Twitter. And the results were exactly the same, which I found very interesting. So the poll says, how do you feel about Fallout 76? And the answers were, I'm hyped, I hate it, I just want single player Fallout, or I will probably just play Fallout 76 solo. And the final option was, I have no idea how to feel about this. And interestingly enough, as of this recording, the winning is the most voted option was, I have no idea how I feel about this, or I'm confused. Which I think is kind of cool. But the second one immediately after that is people that are hyped. So despite the fact that there's been a lot of backlash to Fallout 76, people saying we just want single player Fallout, that was actually the least chosen option in the polls that I ran before I recorded this video, which I think is at the very least a good sign, because it just seems like there's a vocal minority that's really upset about it, but there's also a ton of people that are just confused. They want to know more, while at the same time there's also a healthy amount of people that are pretty excited about this game. Like me, I'm hyped. I'm hyped about it. I will definitely be checking it out, and I will be reporting on you guys as I know more about Fallout 76. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, remember you can subscribe to my channel so that you're notified of all future videos. Just make sure to hit the bell icon as well. Otherwise, we all know that you're not going to be receiving any notifications at all. At this point in time, there will be 2 videos that you can click on because the end slate will have come up. You can choose to click on any of those videos, and if you do, thank you very much, and watch those, and hopefully they will be entertaining. Otherwise, once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.